Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. And I got to tell you something, people. It was a sad day this weekend. My old car that I loved, the beautiful 1995 Toyota Tercel with only 113,000 miles on it, died. And I'm going to tell you what bothered me was that place was me when I lived in Vegas, in San Diego, in Hollywood, in Westwood, and for the last 15 years, 14 years, it's been a mainstay on the Burbank streets. And the head gasket went, and I said to Joanne, I said, I want to keep this car, and she said, you can't. And I said, but I love this car, even though it was an awful car. It was just the security of it. And basically, I called my mechanic, and I said, Harry, what will it cost to fix, and what would it cost, let's say 6 months down the road, I resell it? And he said, get rid of the car. So I got rid of the car, so now I'm in the car market. But it's just crazy because I'm a carless guy now. I have like 2 keys on my keychain, but it's not a bad feeling. Anyway, we have a great show today. We have a actor who's just he's great. I mean, and he played a character named Coop, which everyone called me growing up. And my guest is Lyndon Ashby. How you doing, Lyndon?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good, good. So you grew up in Florida, right?
I did. I grew up in Atlantic Beach, Florida, which is right near Jacksonville, northeast corner.
And now, as a kid, were you into sports, or were you acting? I mean, at what point in your life did you decide that, hey, you know what, I really want to sit there and pursue this craft? Was it at a young age, or was it older? Because I know you had left college.
No, it wasn't really at a young age. When I was a kid, I surfed and skateboarded pretty much nonstop. I played soccer. I played football till I got too little to compete with the guys that had grown up. And I think I did a play or two maybe in high school, but then really when I got to college, I started acting, and I figured out this was something that I loved and that I might be pretty good at, and I had a real passion for it, and so I dropped out of college after my third year and moved to New York and studied at the Neighborhood Playhouse with Sandy Meisner. And it was this huge turning point for me. It was like full on commitment.
What do you think made you feel that you loved the passion, you loved the act? I mean, was your major in college? What was your major in college?
No, I was a business and psychology. So I didn't have a theater degree. And I didn't, I wasn't pursuing one, but it felt like it was what it was what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to tell these stories, to be these people, I found that you learned so much about, human beings by, in a sense, walking in their shoes and, for these parts, and it was, like I say, I think that it was something that I had I was okay at it. I was pretty good at it, better than I am at talking about it.
Right.
I don't know, and it just it kind of struck a chord in me, and I knew that it was what I wanted to do with my life.
Now, what was it like going to New York? I mean, you're young, you're hungry. It must have been a great feeling, but it also must have been a little bit scary because you're jumping into a big new city with a
totally overwhelming. I mean, I got there. I was in New York from 81 to 87. Which were kind of crazy years to be in the city. It was great. I mean, the music scene was amazing. The disco was dying, but it wasn't dead yet. I remember sitting at like Studio 54 with Andy. We had a table with Andy Warhol and Timothy Leary.
Wow. That's like that's a movie right there.
Yeah, no kidding, right? And then Rod Stewart rolled in, and it was just cocaine was not addictive, and it was the go-go early 80s. And then I think around 84, AIDS hit, and it was everything just the screws tightened down on everything. And this whole world that had been happening kind of just like, whoa. It was, and you can't understand it now, unless you were there, but it was it was like a plague. And it was being in the business that I was in and the world that I was living in. You saw, it's not, you can't say I saw a generation die because it was multi-generational, but I saw so many people die. And it took a creative, cultural generation, let's say, of all age groups and just decimated it. And it was scary, and it was weird, and it was heartbreaking, and it was, just out of control, an out of control time and to be there. And nobody knew anything about it, and there was no cure, and there were no cocktails, and there was nothing. If you got it, it was a death sentence. But I was there, I got there when I was 21, and I left when I was 27.
Now, what made you leave? I mean, when you were doing the acting, were you getting parts in New York?
I was. I studied for 2 years at this school, at the neighborhood playhouse, and then I graduated. I got an agent. I started doing theater, and I was doing off-Broadway, off-Broadway, regional theater. I was working quite a bit. And then I got on a soap opera called Loving, on ABC soap. And I met Susan, my wife, and she was 21 when I met her. I think I was 23, 24 when we first met, I think. And then, it was like this typically, I don't know, we went out to lunch. At first, I was just doing a guest spot on the show.
Just because you were in IMDb says you were Curtis Olden number 4.
No, I was number 2.
Okay. Damn that IMDb, they're always wrong.
Not that accurate IMDb. But anyway, I met her, and we sort of knew each other a little bit. And then when I got on the show, I asked her to go out. We dated for about maybe 3 months. I asked her to marry me. We got married less than 3 months later.
Wow.
I know.
I mean, and you stayed married for so long. I mean, that's what's amazing about it. They always say entertainment couples, this and that, but you guys went straight into, and at a very young age. I mean, I'm 52, and I think there's like 2 people I know from high school, and I went to a big high school that actually got, like, the high school sweethearts got married. And for you guys, at that age, it's just amazing.
The odds were totally against us, and we just didn't know any better, I guess. And we loved each other, and we still do. And it worked. And but would I would I encourage my kids to do what we did? No. Good God, we from soup to nuts in 5.5 months or something like that. But 30 years later, it worked out okay.
So when you guys got married, you're still in New York. Did you both decide to move to L.A.? Did one of you guys get something for pilot season? Or what brought the trek out here? Because it is, if she was on a soap opera, that's a steady job. That's a good job.
Yeah,
you guys are both working.
Yeah, then I was on the soap as a regular, and she was on the soap as a regular, and then she got off, and then I got fired, actually. I had a shitty attitude, and
What happened? How did they fire you? Did they just call you in the office and say you're fired?
They're like, you're done. We're tired of probably dealing with your bullshit. And, because I was like, man, I was an actor. And I was probably such a pain in the ass, Why, the integrity of this and and this and that. And I would, just agonizing over stuff that they're probably like, Jesus Christ, kid, just say the line. We want to go home. So we, I think she was on it for 3 years. I was on it for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And we got off, and she did a movie called Ruskies. And she then, we're like, all right, well, LA seems like a place we should be. And we moved out that January, I guess. January of, God, was it 2017 or I'm not 2017, I'm sorry, 1987.
I'm guessing, yeah. 2017, you're living in the future. This is
yeah, right. 1987, and it was funny. I got out and I immediately booked a big mini series with Farrah Fawcett called "Poor Little Rich Girl," and she was playing Barbara Hutton, and I played her son, and we were sort of off to the races. And then I had like these job, and then Susan's career like took off. She just exploded, and she was, I think she was doing she got on Hotel, but then she booked this mini series called Elvis and Me, and she played Priscilla Presley, and then it was huge. It was a huge mini series, and then she got off that, and because Spelling had let her off to do this, she owed him a series. So she did this show called Nightingales, which was incredibly successful, numbers wise, but like the nurses were against it. It was like nurses in, Merry Widows, and it was scandalous.
Right.
And it was great. And did huge ratings, and they canceled it because the nurses were like boycotting it, and everyone was angry, and it was pretty funny. And then she got on a show called Dear John, and did that with Judd Hirsch, a sitcom, and did that for 3 years, I think. And in this point, it's like my career, like I wasn't doing that great. I was playing a lot of music and trying to make it in the music business.
What did you play?
I played guitar and sang, and we played around town a ton and chased that record deal and got close a couple times and didn't get it. And I remember there were years when like Susan was just crushing it. I don't think I could, I wasn't even making enough to pay her taxes. And then I did a couple movies, and then I did a movie called 8 Seconds, and it was with Luke Perry, who I knew because Luke had been on Loving after I left, and he got fired too because he had a shitty attitude.
Maybe it was just the show.
Maybe, but the producer was like, called him in, and we've always been friends since because the producer was like, "You remind me of another young actor who was very talented but had a very bad attitude, named Lyndon Ashby." And Luke's like, "Oh, awesome." But so Luke was playing. It was Lane Frost with Lane Frost Rodeo. I'm getting old and forgetting things. Anyway, so I came in, I did this part in this movie, and then they were casting Wyatt Earp, this big Kevin Costner film. And John Avildsen, who directed 8 Seconds, really went out of his way. He sent over footage to Larry Kasdan and, really went out of his way to help me get that part, and I've owed him a huge debt ever since then. And just a great guy. No. And then I got Wyatt Earp, and then I got Mortal Kombat, and then it's just sort of started working a ton. But what's kind of cool about it is that Susan and my careers, it's like we have always sort of like. We sort of ebb and flow as careers do, but we've done it in this kind of brilliant kind of synchronicity that's like, I'm making money, she's not. She's making money, I'm not. It's like, and so we've just kind of ridden these waves through our life together. And when I was young, I think that it really bothered me that she was more successful than I was, and now, holy shit, if she would get a series and bring home a ton of money, I'd be like, yeah, baby.
That's called maturity.
Yeah.
Now with the Wyatt Earp, I got to ask you, he really pulled for you, and you figured, it's a Costner movie, it's this big movie.
Right.
As an actor, I know because I talked to someone, Patrick Fabian from Better Call Saul, and he said, when he got that part, everybody wanted the part, and he was just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I got it." For you, were you sitting there going, "Man, I'm really going to go up against heavy hitters because it is a Costner movie, it is a big scale western, and it's got a great cast."
I mean, it was right at the peak of Kevin's, career. And I remember walking into the rehearsal hall. It was like a big movie, and we had a week of rehearsal. Which all I'm thinking is, holy shit, I'm going to go in and rehearse, and they're going to go, you suck, and they're going to fire me. But they didn't, thankfully. But I remember walking in, and it's Kevin, it's Gene Hackman, it's Dennis Quaid, it's Tom Sizemore, and Michael Madsen, and Mare Winningham, and Jo Beth Williams, and Mark Harmon, and just you name it, they're in that room, and it's Kasdan's directing, and it's this big budget Warner Brothers Western, and I am like, oh man, I'm the new guy, but I did it, and if I could do it again, I would just, I was so kind of uptight about trying to prove that I belong, that I was good enough to be there, and I'd just relax and have fun and enjoy the ride, and I think the greatest gift that an actor or that a human being can have is know that you're enough. You're enough. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to prove anything. You're enough, and it's such an appealing quality in people. We're totally drawn to those people who are like, hey, I'm really comfortable in my skin, and life is good.
So after that movie, you said then you got Mortal Kombat. Now,
I did.
Now you started doing martial arts when you were around 21, I think I read.
Right, I did. Did some karate. I boxed a ton from like 18 to 20 or 21.
Now, what are you thinking? You're a good-looking guy. You want to get into acting, and you're boxing. If you had an agent, they would probably say, "Get out of the ring."
Probably, but I don't know. I didn't know I was going to be. I was just doing theater then. I didn't know I was going to be an actor professionally, and I liked to box. And I thought that in hindsight, it's a good thing. And it's funny because I'll talk to young actors, and they're like, "What should I be doing?" And I've got this theater degree, or I'm getting a theater degree. What should I do? And I'm like, you should, like there was one kid and his dad built prisons in Mexico that I was talking to, and he was kind of, wealthy kid. And I was like, you should go and build prisons in Mexico during the summer. And he's like, what? And I'm like, go. You're not going to play a rich, entitled person. You want to play people who are, from every walk of life. Go live with those people. Go work with those people. And, like when I was growing up, I, worked in the shipyards. I hung sheetrock. I worked on a ranch. I was also a lifeguard for, a little bit, which was kind of fun. I was a bartender. I was a waiter. I did temp work in offices. I did anything and everything, and I think that that's what you have to do, because you gotta broaden your world, you can't just keep it suburban, or you're going to be pretty boring, I think.
Yeah, I think also for the roles you get, I mean, you have to have some experience of, as you said, you did all these different things. A guy who comes in, they say, hey, play a sheetrock or a shipyard. A lot of times they're going to sit there and overanalyze it when it's like, no, just do it because you have experience from it.
Yeah, I mean, what I remember from being in the shipyard is that it sucked. It was hot. It was really hot. I was the low man on the totem pole, so I was doing insulation in a oil rig, in the living compartments of an oil rig in Florida in the summer with insulation, just fiberglass all over me. And at lunch, the guys would all they would do is talk about the peppers that they grew in their garden, and we'd eat hot peppers in fucking 100-degree heat. And I'm like, whoa, wow, okay. But you start living for that whistle. Whistle blows, you go to work. Whistle blows, you take a break. Whistle blows, you come back from the break. Whistle blows, you go to lunch. Whistle blows, you come back from lunch. Whistle blows, you go home. It's and it's there was a fun. It was fun too, because you didn't bring your work home with you. I wasn't thinking about putting up insulation when I got off work. I was thinking about getting a cold beer and goddamn washing the burning peppers out of my stomach. But I told this kid, I'm like, if there wasn't a war, I would suggest, go in the military. Do something. Get outside your comfort zone. Go hitchhike, across America. Do something. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted to, I don't know what he wanted to do.
Of course.
I actually talked to him. Maybe he did. Who knows?
No. So now, what you said, so you took up the boxing. Now, how did that lead into your whole other martial arts? And what martial arts did you study?
When I was about 21, just a little bit of karate, and I wasn't super duper great at it. But I always worked out, hit the bag, threw kicks, punches. I was pretty good with my hands, better with my hands than I was with my feet, and just enjoyed it. And then Mortal Kombat came along, and we trained up, and then I just really sort of kind of liked it and started doing a lot more jobs that required it. So I studied a lot more, and a lot of different disciplines and techniques, and I'd be doing a job, and whatever studio was nearest to the hotel is what I would study. So I've studied Wing Chun, I've studied karate, Taekwondo, Kung Fu, Krav Maga. It's a pretty broad spectrum of martial arts, and I like it that you take what works and or what works for you, and it was never about getting a belt for me. It was about sort of working out and learning something new.
Now, through Mortal Kombat and Wyatt Earp, you started doing. Were you jumping back and forth to TV and movies? And back then, a lot of people didn't do that. What was that like for you? Because you're doing. I mean, you go from a Wyatt Earp where it's probably a long day with the angles, and you're going back on TV. How are you juggling your career? And were you getting parts offered to you because you were in these blockbusters? I mean, Mortal Kombat. People know. I mean, if you're my age, if you're over 45, you know what Mortal Kombat is. You know what I mean? It's just like Wyatt Earp. Everybody knows that movie. Was Hollywood reaching out to you then saying, hey, we want this guy?
They were in a certain way, and then they weren't in a certain way, because what happened is, Wyatt Earp was, this critically, it was the right kind of movie to be in, but it didn't do well at the box office. It didn't. If you remember, I think we won our opening weekend, but then it was kind of a flop, and everyone thought Tombstone was a better movie, and it was way more successful, and Wyatt Earp pretty much told the same story, but we did it in 3 hours, it was not a commercially successful film. And then I got Mortal Kombat, which was commercially hugely successful. No video game adaptation had ever worked before, and it's like they'd done Double Dragon and Street Fighter and Mario Brothers, and they'd all flopped, and no one thought Mortal Kombat was going to do anything, and it did. It was this juggernaut. We were number one for 3 weeks at the box office, but it was the wrong kind of movie. It was like no one took it seriously, and I had people saying, well, it's not to me but to my agents, going, well, it was only successful because of the title, completely forgetting the other video game movies that had equally big titles that had flopped. And so then I got, God, I'll tell the heartbreak story. so I'm doing reshoots on Mortal Kombat, and I'd gone in after Wyatt Earp, and I'd met with Joel Schumacher, and he talked about a film. He said, I can't, I can't talk about what it is, but I think he'd be great in this part, blah, 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 blah. And we sat and chatted for an hour. And then after, I'm doing reshoots on Mortal Kombat, and he calls my agent, and he has me come in for another meeting. And he goes, well, you probably know that the project that I'm doing is called A Time to Kill. And we talk, and we talk, and we talk, and we talk for another hour. And then he calls me in again, and he's in the mixing studio at this point. And he's mixing Batman, one of the Batman movies, I think the George Clooney one. And we talk again, and we go outside. And this is either our third, I don't know if we had another meeting before that, we might have. But he calls me back in. And I go there, and we go out back of the mixing studio. And he goes, do you want to do this part? And I went, yeah, hell yeah. And he goes, good. He goes, you're going to be great in this movie. He goes, you're going to be great. We're going to have a great time making this film. And I said, well, look, do I need to, I'm going to Florida. Do I need to, I know Grisham is in North Carolina, I think, and, do you want, I can go up there and meet with him if that'll help? He goes, no, don't worry about it. He goes, take off, go have a good time. I'll see you. I'll see you on set. And that was the last thing he ever said. He goes, you're going to be amazing in this film. He goes, you're going to be great in this part. I can't wait. And then I read that Matthew McConaughey got the part. And no call from Schumacher, no nothing. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened there? And then there was another part, I think in a movie, Something to Talk About, with Julia Roberts and Dennis Quaid. And that was, I think, right after Wyatt. There was just a series of movies that I just didn't get. I mean, like his college roommate got the part. Dennis Quaid's college roommate got the part. After I'd gone in, the producer had called, my lawyers had called, everyone, they're like, hey, great, congratulations, you got the part. This is awesome. I remember I was going down to San Diego with Susan to take the girls to SeaWorld. Go have a great weekend. We'll close the deal on Monday. And then Brett went in on Saturday and got the part. And it just was, I needed that one more movie, that one more part. But then I think if maybe that had happened, I don't know if, you never know what life would have been like, maybe, who knows? Would I still be with Susan? Would I become somebody different? Would I don't know. And it's you can second guess his stuff to death, but at the time I was like, just devastated.
Yeah, I would think as an actor, especially because, it is such a tough field, and it's not like you went in an audition and you came out and said, I nailed the audition. Here, you were told you would get the part. And,
yeah.
And it was a few in a row. And I think of it as like one of those baseball players who, I'm a Phillies fan. Ryan Howard had these amazing seasons, and now he just can't get something. And you think of what goes on psychologically after those movies. How do you stay on the horse? And how do you even go into an audition thinking, hey, what they say might be bullshit because I've been screwed over a few times in the last few things I did.
Yeah, it's, you just, I guess you're like you're like a cornerback, not a quarterback, a cornerback. And, you got to have a short memory. Guy beats you, you got to have a short memory, and you just, but it fucks you up. I don't know how you do it, but you do it. And then I guess I did a couple little movies that didn't really mean anything. And And then I did a series for ABC called Spy Game. And we were like the critical, well, I don't know. Did great. And then Capital Cities, between the time that we were developed, the order made 13, and the time that we aired, ABC or Capital Cities had sold ABC to Disney. And so we were the old regime's show. And we never had a chance, and we, it's like, I remember being with one of the network executives, and we're at a party for something, and we're a few cups in, and I said, geez, just one more show, come on. I said, give us one more show. This, third or fourth episode, whatever. I go, it's a great episode. And she goes, yeah, maybe a little too good.
See, that's what I hate too, and I hear this from a lot of actors come on the show. When you're involved with shows that are so good, or there's just such a good cast, that for some reason the networks get scared.
No, they weren't scared. They didn't want us. We were the old regime's show. They wanted their shows. They wanted new shows. They wanted, we were tainted goods.
Okay.
So then, that show got canceled. And then I did more, I guess I did Melrose Place at that point.
Now, I got to tell you the Melrose, because I've been called Coop my whole life. And
nice.
I like to, it's been my nickname forever. And I crack up because whenever Bradley Cooper wants to be called Coop, I'm like, I'm older than you. I'm Coop.
But, yeah, I'm Coop. You're not.
Yeah. What was it like being on Melrose? Because that had such a, the younger kids don't remember, but that had that show blew up. People were into that. That was like I was back east at the time, I think, and people just loved that. Were you starting to get noticed on the streets, and had you been going through that with your career for Mortal Kombat and stuff like that?
Yeah, I had already gotten a certain level of celebrity, I guess. And so I went, after Spy Game got canceled, I went to on a surf trip to Costa Rica with a buddy of mine. And this is back, in the 90s, and let's say mid-90s. Mid to late 90s. And, cell phones existed, but they sure didn't, there was no cell phones in Costa Rica that you could talk to the United States. So we went for about a week or 10 days, and we were out of communication. I talked to Susan, and she's like, well, Scotty, your managers, they're trying to get a hold of you. And I'm like, I'll talk to them when I get back, whatever. There was nothing I could do about anything when I was in Costa Rica anyway. So, I guess that they called Scott, and they said it was the best negotiating I ever did in my life, because I called him up and they said, will he do this part? And he said, I don't know. He's not in the country. He's on a surf trip. And they go, all right, well, we'll offer him this much money for 13 shows. And Scotty's like, I don't know. And then they call back, will he do it? And he goes, I don't know, I haven't talked to him. And they go, all right, series regular, this much money. And he's like, I don't know. I haven't talked to him. And then they call back, and they keep calling back. And finally, I get back in town, and it's like, okay, they want you for this amount, for this many shows, this much money. I'm like, holy shit, I would have said yes, 2 weeks ago. And it was funny, because I came on this show, and it was the sixth season, and it was already very well established. And I was coming into this thing that it wasn't really a genre that I knew a ton about. All I'd been doing for 5 years was westerns and fight movies, and suddenly you've got this dynamic of, they talked a lot, I thought, in Melrose Place. It's like, everyone just had long conversations. I'm like, well, fuck, I should have just punched the guy or walked out of the room or something about 5 minutes ago. But it was fun. It was really interesting to be a part of this, part of pop culture, and I don't know that they didn't really know what they were going to do with the character. And it kind of like started one way and went another way and then went another way and then went, it kind of, you know, and you can't really do that. You have to kind of hit the ground with a character that people can identify with and either love or hate or root against or root for or something. But it was just sort of middle of the road kind of mishy-mash. And so it lasted a season. I think I did 32 or 3 or 4 episodes total. And it was fun. It was interesting, but don't know.
Now, you also worked on some soaps. Now, what's that like when you're going from being in a movie, being in TV, where it's a lot of sit around and wait? Right. I know you'd start off in a soap, and so you have to have. But you, as you said, then you were fired because you had an attitude or whatever. And now as you're older and a wiser actor, and it's all about the craft, and you have to produce. What is it like when you go back to something to a soap where you have to learn so much? I mean, I talk to people who've been on soaps. It's like you shoot, you go home, you learn your lines, you go back. What's that like when you're someone who's used to doing TV and movies with as we say, sit around and wait? What's it like when it seems it's probably more pressure filled? And did you study more from that? Is it to take back to your theater days when you had to learn stuff?
Yes, it does, and it is a skill set that you learn being on a soap opera. And I never, since Loving, I came on The Young and the Restless because Susan was on it, and they asked me. They said, "Hey, will you come and do like this 13?" They asked her, "Hey, would he do this like 13 show arc?" And she's like, "I don't know, ask him." And I was like, "Sure, I'll come on. I get to work with Susan and whatever." And I came on, and then they added some shows to it. But it was really fun. But it was a whole different thing because, like you say, you've got 20 pages of dialogue, and then you got 20 pages tomorrow, and then you got 20 pages the next day, and you shoot it, and you get maybe 1 or 2 shots at tries at it, and you better get it right. And it's terrifying. It's really scary, and but it was fun, and I did that, and I think I was doing that, and then I was doing a TV movie at the same time. I was just running back and forth, but it was a blast. And then I did a similar thing on Days of Our Lives, I think, where Ed Scott, who was the executive producer of Young and the Restless, took over Days of Our Lives. And I was living in Georgia at that point, and he called and said, "Hey, will you come in and do this?" And I went, he goes, "We got to shake this show up." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever." And I come in and do it, and I never figured that I'd stay real long on those shows, but it sure was fun to go in and kind of shake things up.
Now, what were you doing living in Georgia?
Well, it was 2007, I think, when we moved there, and our girls were high school age, and Susan, who's way smarter than I am, was like, "I really don't want to go to high school in Los Angeles. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but and she's like, I want to spend time with my parents are still alive. I want to spend time. I want our girls to have family and this and that and this high school experience." And so I went, all right, and I my whole thing was I was like, I never wanted to overstay my welcome at the party. I'd had a pretty good run as an actor, and I didn't, I've gotten this I think that it had all sort of gotten to me at this point, and I wasn't auditioning very well. I was kind of having panic attacks and just freaked out about everything and just was my own worst enemy. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. Maybe I'll do something different with my life. I don't know. And we had done pretty well and saved money, and we headed for Georgia and bought a little farm there and settled down, and I was looking at a bookstore that I was maybe going to buy. And, my parents were in Florida, so I got to see them quite a bit, and it was great because my dad got sick and, wound up passing away. But I was able to be with him a ton,
right,
leading up to that. And then so all it takes is for you to say, all right, I think I'm done, maybe with show business or whatever. And then that year I did, what did I do? I started out the year, I'd done Resident Evil the year before, and then I did like Prom Night, and then I did another movie in LA, and then a movie in Vancouver, and then a movie in Alabama, and then ended a movie in Eastern Canada, ended the year with so it's like movie. I hadn't done 2 movies in Los Angeles since freaking Mortal Kombat. You never worked in LA. You worked everywhere else around the world, but you never worked in LA. And so then the next year I got on a show called The Gates. I did 7 out of the 13 or something. And then I did this and that and movies, and then Teen Wolf came along.
No.
And I kind of fell into that, and life is funny,
Now, how did that? And didn't Teen Wolf shoot in Atlanta for a little bit?
Yeah, that's why I got the job. I don't think I would have gotten the job if I'd been in L.A.
Now, what happened? Did you audition down there? Or, how did the whole process start? Because I've heard that people say we moved, and then there's actors down there, but it's not as thick of a pool of actors. So you go in and you have credits, you shine. Was that offered to you, or did you have to audition? And did you think it would run for this long?
Well, first of all, I got the script for Teen Wolf, and I was like, oh shit, really? This is the best they can, we're going to do a series based on a bad 80s movie.
Right.
Which was a remake of a bad, 50s or 60s movie, It was, and it just, I was not inspired. And then I read this script, and I'm like, holy shit, this is really good. And it was great stuff. And yeah, I think I went on tape for it, and then they wanted to meet with me, and I said no. I was out of town doing something else, and Jeff Davis was like, "It's okay, we know him. Will he do the part?" And I went, "Yeah." And so I got this part on this show, and it was really good. Really good. And these kids were great, and the writing was great, and we just captured lightning in a bottle. It was no, I don't think I thought about 6 seasons, but what the hell, it's been fun. It sure has been fun.
It's funny, a guy I've known forever, I used to wait tables with, Tom Choi, is on that show.
I love Tom.
Yeah, me and him used to work at Gordon Biersch in Burbank. God, 15 years ago. We actually worked at Planet Hollywood in Beverly Hills. I've known Tom since I moved out here. We just knew each other. And I know he was on that show. And then Orny Adams has been on my show. He was on that show too.
Orny's still on the show.
Okay. Now, what's it like now? It's funny because you look at your career and you constantly weave in and out of different fan bases, but they're the fan bases that are big. Like a Mortal Kombat fan base is going to be huge. A Melrose fan base, completely different than Mortal Kombat, huge
right.
fan base. Soap operas, same thing. Now with this show, you're hitting a market. We remember MTV when it was music, and then it was crap reality. But now this is a good scripted show. What is it like? Just to think that you could go to a Comic-Con and get mobbed. And have you done any of the cons because of the popularity of the show?
I have. I've done a couple cons. I've done, and it was funny going back to Comic-Con because last time I was at Comic-Con was for Mortal Kombat. And it's gotten bigger.
I used to live, no lie, when Comic-Con started, I lived in San Diego. I think it was 20 years ago. And I lived right near the convention center. And it was nothing. You see a few people in outfits. And then now I see it, I go, man, I could have gotten in a place for free 20 years ago, and now it's just this. I mean, people, you could scalp tickets for like $500 easily.
Yeah, yeah, and you do. And then these other conventions, there are Teen Wolf conventions around, and it's what I really love is I love to go to these things and talk. I actually like the fans, I do, and I find that they come together in these conventions, and it's really cool to see how this little show, called Teen Wolf, has touched so many lives around the world and really made a difference. And that's just really cool to see.
Why do you think it's touched people? Why do you think it's made a difference? I mean, because, what is the reasoning and why have people embraced it so much?
Well, I think that we deal with growing up, of being a teenager. It's not just about werewolves, and it's parents that are really great parents and involved in their kids' lives, and it's we deal with homosexuality and transgender like it's not a big deal, like it's just another color to wear, and a gay relationship is no different than a straight relationship. It's about two people loving each other or dating each other, having fun with each other. We don't put tonight a very special episode of Teen. It's like, no, it's like these two kids are dating, and they're two guys or two girls or whatever, and we don't make a big deal about it. We incorporate that into the fabric of our show, and I think that by not making a big deal out of it, you're destigmatizing all this stuff, and it's really touched people, and and the way that parents interact with kids has touched people. I've had so many people come up and go, I don't have a dad, but your relationship with your son on the show, if I could have a father, I would want it to be like that. I'd want it to be you, sort of. It's and the issues that we deal with and the way that we deal with them, it just is deeper than just a series about a teenage werewolf. It's really human issues, and about growing up, and about fitting in, and about the changes that we go through, and struggles and triumphs, and it just worked.
Now,
it still works.
Does that shoot out here now, or is it still shooting?
Yeah.
Georgia? Okay.
Yeah, we shot two seasons in Atlanta, and then we came out on our third season.
Well, that must be great, because now you went from where you live. Now you're out here and you're living, so it's perfect.
Yeah, and then we're empty nesters, so we came out and we're like, the hardest part for me living in Atlanta is I grew up surfing, and I surf all the time, and it was not an easy place to surf living in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So when we came back out, I'm like, hey, let's they gave you living expenses and per diem and whatnot, and I'm like, let's not rent a place in the valley. Not that there's anything wrong with the valley. I lived in the valley. Let's live in Malibu.
See,
so we bought a little place down here. We, and we live kind of on the beach, and life is pretty damn good.
And now you have a new movie coming out too.
I do.
And it's called Beta Test.
It is called Beta Test.
Comes out the 22nd, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It's on the 22nd, and it's a 22 or 20 city release, limited release, 20 cities, and it's a really cool, fun little movie. And once again, it was an offer, and the director calling me up and talking to me about what he wanted to do, and it was it's a film that Nick Genie called me up, and he's a director and writer, and said, I'm doing this movie. I want it to be an homage to 1990s action movies with a 2016 twist. And, he talked to me about it and what he wanted to do. and obviously 1990s action movies are kind of near and dear to my heart. And it's funny because we did this movie, and it's like stylistically the logos for the company and the game consoles and stuff. It's all very throwback. And then you're dealing with gun control issues, which couldn't be any more timely if we scripted it. And and your villain and your hero and how we did it. And then, I don't want to give too much away about the film, but, there are sections of the film that you think are animated, and it's not. You're watching a video game engine that was created for this film. It's an actual video game. And, it's a fun little movie. And once again, it's, if I get to work with somebody who's smart and imaginative and gonna do things differently and elevate something, if you can take what could be just a B action film and turn it into a really smart, limited budget action film instead, I'm down with that. And he wanted to do stuff like, I think we have the longest action sequence, no cut, single cut action sequence in film history in this movie.
Wow.
And it's just it's not going to cure cancer, and it's not going to do anything, but it's smart, it's good action, and it's fun.
Now, what's your character, Kincaid? Is he a good guy, a bad guy, or can you reveal that, or do we have to wait to see it?
I'm a bad guy.
Now, do you like playing bad guys?
Yeah, it's fun. The thing about bad guys is they never think they're bad.
Right.
I'm sure that, Stalin thought he was a pretty good guy. He was justified in what he did. Who was it? Is it Ahab, who in Moby Dick, who said my motives are pure but my methods are mad, or something like that? Right. And that's kind of the way that I looked at this character. His motives are pure until you just don't realize he's absolutely batshit crazy. But he has good ideas, and you're listening to his arguments at first, and you're like, okay, I'm down with that. And then you go, oh, wait a sec. Yeah.
So I always ask my guests this, especially you guys who've been in very long careers. What are some of the best ways you've gotten killed on screen?
Oh, I think Resident Evil Extinction. I was on the Eiffel Tower in Vegas, killing zombies, and then zombies jumped on my back and threw me off the Eiffel Tower. That was a good one.
Now, how did they shoot that?
Well, I was on a model of the Eiffel Tower that they built, and these two stuntmen jumped on my back, and I think that Eiffel Tower should have bought me dinner and drinks for what it did to me. I thought it was going to split me in two. With two guys, on your back, and you're basically straddling a girder. It was not great, and then it fell off, and I don't remember. I guess into a pad of some sort. I don't know. I don't know how I fell off.
Now back to Teen Wolf real quick.
Okay.
Is a new season coming up, or what's going on?
It is. We're finishing up the first 10 episodes of our 6th season, and it's good. It's really good, actually. It's every time I was talking to Jeff Davis about it, and I just saw the trailer for it, and I was like, wow. And he goes, yeah. He goes, it's still Teen Wolf. And I'm like, yes, it is. And with everything that brings, and then some. And I showed it to Paul Anderson, who, is a good friend of mine, directed Mortal Kombat. I showed him the trailer. And he goes, fuck. He goes, that does not look like a TV show that's in its 6th season. He goes, that looks like a first year, second year show that you're still trying to prove yourself. And, he goes, it just gets better and better. He goes, it looks like a big budget feature. And, we work really hard on that show. And and we don't settle, and which is what I love. I mean, that goes back to loving, the soap opera. I don't do well with accepting mediocrity. I'd rather stay there and work longer and get it right. And I've found that in my career that if you bust your ass and you work 15, 16-hour days, whatever you're working, and in 3 months when you watch the finished product, you don't care. You don't think about how hard you worked. You think about how good what you're watching is. And when you just, when people don't put that effort in, and when they settle, and you watch it for 3 months later, and you go, "Oh God, I'm ashamed of this." I never want to be ashamed of anything that I do.
Now, do they have a premiere date already for Teen Wolf?
I think it's going to be October. I don't know. I think Comic-Con's coming up, and they'll probably announce it then. But I don't know. No, I don't know of an exact date.
Now, what's your Twitter?
My Twitter is Lyndon Ashby. Lyndon Ashby.
And you have a lot of followers, I saw.
I do. I think, yeah, like 300,000 or something, which is a lot of people.
That's a ton of people. Now, do you tweet a lot? Do you keep active on it?
I tweet. Yeah, I'll tweet when something strikes my fancy or I want to talk about something. I'll tweet. I think I tweeted about the Portugal-France final this weekend because I'm a soccer fan. And did I tweet about anything since then? I don't know. Yeah, so I'm not what would it be?
Tweetaholic.
I'm not a serial tweeter, yeah. but I tweet if something strikes my, if I see something that's funny, like I tried to get out my camera last night because I'm sitting in a restaurant bar and there are 4 or 5 women gathered around a parking meter trying to figure out how to make it work. And I'm like, God damn it, where's my camera? It's a parking meter. How can 4 women not know how to make a parking meter work?
And they're easier now because you can just put a card in.
I know, but it seemed like it was, magic to them or something.
Now, do your Teen Wolf fans tweet to you?
Yes, they do. And I tweet back to them.
And is it just very encouraging? I mean, do you feel like that you're really loved by them?
I do. I feel like I'm really liked and loved by a lot of the people who follow me, and I feel like I have a relationship with some of them. And I'll tweet back and I'll talk to them, and I can't do it every day all the time, but there'll be times that I absolutely respond and write back.
See, that's awesome. Well, we got to wrap up in just a few. Do you Instagram? You seem like a guy who might Instagram.
I don't.
Okay.
I think there was a time when I had a pretty good Instagram account that wasn't mine, but I was pretty damned impressed with it. Someone else was putting up all kinds of pictures. I'm like, look at me. But no, I don't. I can only do one social media thing at a time.
You're a busy
and maybe
guy.
I should do Instagram. I don't know, but I don't really Facebook, and I just kind of tweet, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I should do other things, but I don't.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on. And
thank you for having me. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
Thank you. Beta test, the 22nd, 20-city release.
You bet.
At Lyndon Ashby. People follow him at Lyndon Ashby. Follow me at Cooper Talk. That's at Cooper Talk. Instagram, Cooper Talk 1. Words with Friends. I'll play you, Cooper Talk 1. Don't forget my website, www.coopertalk.net. I have 530 episodes up there. You can email me, Cooper at coopertalk.net. Tell me what guests you want to see or if I can get them. And I will try. And iTunes and Stitcher, one word, Cooper Talk. And don't forget also my other website, stopthesalt.com. It was a little over 4 years ago when I had my heart problem. Went in the hospital, came out, gave up caffeine, gave up cigarettes, and started eating really healthy. So the book is at stopthesalt.com. It's 120 recipes, low sodium cooking for one. You won't get intimidated. There's no pictures, guys. It's directed for you guys who are afraid to cook. No pictures to scare you. No long list of ingredients. If you don't have cumin, don't worry. You don't need cumin. I eat with it, but I'm a better cook than you guys. And you can get it at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. But if you buy it from me, I'll sign it and I make more money. And that's what it's about. You know, I write this to help you guys, but I got to make money. So anyway, don't forget, beta test, July 22nd. Go see it. Follow Lyndon Ashby. Follow me. I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins. I will talk to you guys next week.